Now we can finally talk about how awesome week 1 was.
Oh my gosh. Can we just live in the excitement? One, football's back. Football's back. We
baby.
literally we're recording during the Jets 49ers game. I think it's halftime right now.
Yep.
We have it right here. It's live football. College football's back. High school football's back. It's just, I love it. And it's still not like
And we're
deep into fall.
We're drinking a great fall beer.
Yeah,
right
the
now.
Oktoberfest beers are starting to come out.
Yeah.
You may see some Oktoberfest beers start to make an appearance on the show, even if they've already been on the show. I think that's a tradition we can live with.
Oh, for sure.
And happily go with. But yeah, football's back, and there's nothing worse than getting hyped up about your team for the better part of a year, and seeing the moves happen, drafting the quarterback 10th overall, getting super excited, reading all the news pieces about why your team's going to win the Super Bowl, and then there's nothing worse to see a week 1 loss. And unfortunately for the Giants, they're living in that right now. Those Giants fans, they're probably ready to trade away or even just flat out cut Daniel Jones.
Did you see the video of their fans burning his jersey in the parking lot after the game?
Don't burn jerseys.
That was a little much. Albeit it was kind of funny, but that was a little much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, anyways, a couple of interesting stats about this game, and I'm just stealing some of the notes that you've already written down.
Yeah,
so
they're there for all of us.
I'm sorry for piggybacking off of you, but this was the first win by 17 plus points for the purple team since December of 2019.
I have a child who is in school and has not been alive for a Vikings win by 17 or more points. That is insane.
Here's another interesting little tidbit for you that's not on your notes. You probably already knew this, but Sam Darnold was the highest rated quarterback in PFF this week, higher than Patrick Mahomes. He was, by that ranking, the best quarterback in the league. That's before this Monday night game happened.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But still, and I don't think, I mean, we've watched tidbits of it as we've been recording here. Aaron Rodgers nor Brock Purdy really look outstanding.
Yeah,
tonight.
we don't have Superman yet in this Monday Night Football game, but yeah, that's crazy. I did see it's one of those like visual bar graphs that plots out players based on the stat. I don't know exactly what the stat was, if it was quarterback rating or whatever it was, but it had the best quarterbacks all on one side, and there's a cluster of 3 guys: Pat Mahomes, Derek Carr for the Saints, and our very own Sam Darnold. So that's fun to see. It's a fun few days in Vikings world right now. Hopefully it doesn't come crashing down next Sunday. But for now, we get to live in it. And you said you were cherry picking some of my ideas. Truthfully, I went to our favorite Viking site, vikingsterritory.com, and I'm cherry picking some of these talking points from their snap reactions after the Vikings-Giants game article. So definitely go check out vikingsterritory.com. Check that article out, and by the time you're hearing me say this, there's going to be a handful more articles and probably more news out. So just check out that website. Dustin Baker and all those guys do a great job. So yeah.
Agreed for sure. Let's talk about Sam Darnold for a little bit. I think that's low-hanging fruit in week 1 here, but I don't think you could have an episode about week 1 winning over the Giants without talking about that guy.
Yeah.
He looked great.
Yeah, and
he looked really, really good.
There wasn't a point where he looked like he was seeing ghosts. There was a point early on where I was kind of getting concerned about that because he was starting to get bounced around a little bit, and I was immediately thinking like, oh no, he's going to go back to his days of not knowing that he's on a good team, like thinking he's on the Jets again and just start throwing the ball haywire. But luckily the Vikings O-line, after some early mishaps, nothing crazy, they seemed to figure it out. Even though the Giants D-line, that was probably their biggest selling point for the whole game for them. Dexter Lawrence was a monster.
Looked like a beast. He was freakish for a while, and he really had an impact on Garrett Bradbury and Ed Ingram for sure.
Yeah.
Blake Brandell on the other side looked better, I thought.
Yeah.
But Dexter Lawrence made a fool of Bradbury and Ingram at times.
Absolutely. Brandell, I think it was news today, his PFF ranking was something like in the 90s. I think he was the highest ranked Viking.
He was the highest ranked Viking.
So what do we know? Dalton who? You know, I mean,
well, I've seen some stuff out there today that said like, let's get Dalton Reisner back and healthy quick, and let's put him on the right side instead of Ingram.
Hopefully we don't have to debate about that idea. Hopefully things get turned around. And realistically, the Vikings offensive line held up well enough.
Yes.
Maybe that, for all I know, the coaching staff schemed around a very aggressive defensive line from the Giants and made some fast passes. Either way, things seem to work. While we are complimenting the Giants really quick, I did want to say Malik Neighbors, he might be worth the hype. I mean, I wasn't thinking he'd be bad, but some of the few highlight plays the Giants had from that game were big passes to Malik Neighbors, and he looks to be pretty good. So hopefully the Giants have something in him, but luckily it wasn't enough to beat the Vikings yesterday.
Yeah, so back to Sam Darnold, because that's kind of where we started this conversation. He was 19 for 24, 208 yards, 79.2 completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, an interception that was tipped at the line.
Yeah, his arm got hit as he was throwing the ball, and it just kind of like volcanoed up. And the Giants, I mean, credit to them, they made the play on that interception.
And he took that sack early in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But and that's, I mean, again, just exposing kind of Dexter Lawrence's effect on the interior offensive line there. But man, that's a stat line that you could be proud of. If you put Kirk Cousins' stat line from yesterday and Sam Darnold's stat line from yesterday in front of me and said which one was Sam and which one was Kirk, I would have said Sam's was Kirk's and Kirk's was Sam's. You know what I'm saying? We
literally tweeted out the stat lines without the names next to them, and it was Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold about halftime for each game. And my tweet was, okay, which quarterback is $140 million or $180 million, and which one was $10 million? And I think we can both agree we're not going to sit here and crap on Kirk Cousins all season. I think you could make a case maybe he's not fully healed or fully prepared to be playing and getting the force off of his legs, which may have been a factor in his poor play yesterday for the Falcons. We're still Cousins fans, but I'm glad that Darnold is our quarterback after one game. You know, let's over-exaggerate a little bit. It's one game, but it's exciting.
I saw something today on Twitter, too, that basically kind of underscored the reality that Kirk's game yesterday would have been the Vikings' reality had he stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And the tweet was kind of starting to dig into the KOC Kwesi dynamic a little bit, because KOC was very much on the Kirk train and was like, this is my ride or die kind of guy. And Kwesi was like, well, let's explore our options here, you know. And if it hadn't been for Kwesi bringing that system of checks and balances, we might still have Kirk Cousins when we might have seen a lot of those underthrown ducks, because like you said, he's not able to project off of that back foot like he used to be able to before his surgery. So
to your point, I think KOC and Kirk just had such a good working relationship, and it probably felt even better because Kirk's relationship with his last head coach was not very good, as evident by the Star Tribune article from about a week ago. And obviously KOC, he felt very comfortable with Kirk. We all did for the most part. But so KOC is going to be that emotional, in a good way, I mean this positive, that emotional reaction decision maker, whereas Kwesi, I really feel like he could build a roster just off of attributes, and if you took names out of it, he wouldn't care. Which I think if you're analytically building a roster, that's probably the best way to do it. So I do have it written down here, kind of jumping ahead. After watching one game this season, it kind of feels like, you know, in college when a head coach gets hired and they're like, they got like 6 years, because you have to really see what they do with their recruiting and their coaching staff and how they implement their system. It kind of feels like we're finally getting to the KOC and Kwesi. This is their team now. Most of the past regime is gone, save for Harrison Smith and a few other guys. This team is fully Kwesi and KOC, and to that point too, Brian Flores. And it kind of feels like this is finally like exactly what we're getting, and I'm here for it.
Oh, I'm 100% here for it. And I mean, we could miss the playoffs this year and go, go out with 7 wins or 8 wins or whatever, and I'll still be happy because I think the pieces are there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over the course of this next season and into next season, you continue to mold and shape this roster into what it can be to be that Super Bowl contending roster. And things are just looking up for the Vikings organization from here.
Yeah.
It may be a struggle this season at times, but I'm excited.
Well, and I think another thing is yes, again, for the 12th time, it's after one game and we're going to overreact. Maybe the Giants will end up being the laughing stock of the league. I don't know, which will, make this game seem less exciting. But the Vikings, all of the newcomers, I mean, you're talking Sam Darnold, you're talking Van Ginkel, who had maybe the play of the game. You're talking Aaron Jones. All of the newcomers that were supposed to do good things for this team did just that. Nobody really est the bed. We didn't have anybody. On one hand, we didn't have anybody be Superman. Justin Jefferson didn't get 10,000 yards receiving and 100 touchdowns in one game. But we also didn't have anybody be just the worst person ever, fumble it 12 times. Yeah, we had the early fumble from C.J. Ham, which is, I think PA said C.J. Ham's fumbled twice in 100 games. That doesn't happen.
It's kind of crazy.
It was a fluke play, but we didn't have the nemesis, the villain of the game that made the Vikings lose. Newcomers included. So I think there's just a lot of reasons to feel good about this team.
You got some of those newcomers. If you go to at Vikes Insider on Twitter, they listed out each of the Vikings PFF grades.
Oh, nice.
From top to bottom. Blake Brandel, we already mentioned, was at the top of the list with a 91.2 ranking.
Mm-hmm.
But then Aaron Jones, number 2, 90.9, newcomer this season. Andrew Van Ginkel, 90.6, number 3 on the team. Sam Darnold, 88.1. You go a little farther down the list. Jihad Ward, 79.9. Stephon Gilmore, 75.8. Blake Cashman, 74. As you said, these new guys came in and they played really well.
Yeah.
They played up to, if not maybe even slightly better than the expectation. And that's what we need if we're going to make that push this season and into future seasons.
Yeah, a lot of reasons right now to feel good. And honestly, watching as the second half of the Jets-Niners game kicks off here in California, it's 7-16 Jets right now. You kind of said it earlier. It's not like the Niners, 7-16 Niners right now. But yeah, it's not like the Niners are blowing anybody out. It's not like the Jets are looking crazy good. I don't know. Seeing this one half, I feel like the Vikings have a chance. At least they beat this team last year with Kirk Cousins and a bunch of guys that aren't here anymore, but they seem better now. So I hope we're wrong. I hope we have to do the punishment next week on the podcast.
And you said it a little bit ago before we started recording. You said we should probably be rooting against any NFC team. And obviously this Monday night game that we're kind of keeping an eye on tonight is AFC versus NFC.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got both of these teams before the bye week, week 6. So we've got the Niners coming up this week and then week 5 in London against the Jets. So this is definitely a game of interest for the Vikings in the early part of the season, and this will certainly be film that the team uses to prepare for both of these games.
Absolutely. So. And another thing that I think kind of helps, maybe I'm putting too much credit to it, but I think it kind of helps the Vikings case next week is the fact that the Niners are playing right now, more than a full day after the Vikings played. Mm-hmm. So the Niners have a little bit of a short week. Yeah, good teams overcome things like that. And the Vikings are going to have those situations throughout the season too, where they're on a short week. Actually, maybe not too many times because they don't have a lot of primetime games. But you got to think, it's got to affect you a little bit. So the Niners they have less time to prepare. They watched the Vikings yesterday, just like the Vikings are watching the Niners right now. I really think the Vikings honestly, truthfully have a chance. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to get blown out or blow the Niners out. I just think it's going to be a good game, especially since it's in Minnesota. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think the Vikings have a chance?
I think there's definitely a chance. I'm still going to stick with my prediction that they lose. I don't know that the Vikings are good enough for that. And I think despite all of the good things that we've said so far about how great this game was, they played against the Giants.
Yeah.
And, the Giants could turn out to be a pretty decent team. Maybe this is the wake-up call they needed to really get their stuff together and turn it around and make something happen this season.
Mm-hmm.
But the Vikings had some issues too. There were some miscues. There were some penalties. There were those, and we talked about this yesterday in our kind of just immediate game recap video that we pushed out, which, by the way, if you want to watch that, that'll be down in the description below. We'll have that linked. That's something we're going to try to do this season too, is do just a quick immediate reaction video and give our kind of takes on each Vikings game.
Yeah. But
anyways, you had said it yesterday. I kind of lost my train of thought because I was trying to hype up the other video that we made. But anyways, there were some things. Oh, I remember now. I got it. I'm back on it. Got to reel that back in.
We'll edit this out.
It was the penalties. It was the delay of game. It was the timeouts that were taken instead of the delay of game penalties. There were a few moments, I think it was in the third quarter, where KOC and Sam Darnold just weren't quite on the same page. And Darnold, I think, was probably getting the play late, and then he ran out of time, and then KOC came in and bailed him out with a timeout before they had to eat the 5 yards and take the penalty. And that happened twice, and it happened like very close together within the span of just a few minutes. Just a few plays.
Definitely seemed to be an issue, something. And I said it in the video. Please go check that out too. I said it kind of, to me, seems like that's one thing that could be remedied with more in-game experience between Darnold and KOC. Once they become kind of one mind, they'll figure out the communication things, how they talk to each other. Darnold may eventually get to the point where he's like, okay, KOC is going to call this play. And just, he's going to be like, yeah, I already knew you were going to say that. It's something like that. But I feel like those taking up all of the play clock is just going to be diminished the more that KOC and Darnold play football together.
And you mentioned that too. You said yesterday that it seemed like they were using most of the play clock to get the play, get to the line, make their reads, and then snap the ball. So I agree with you. I think that will come with time. And I think Kevin O'Connell is just such a likable guy and such an easy to work with guy that I think it'll be easy for Sam Darnold. I think it already has been easy, and it will continue to be easy for those two to work together and continue to iron those things out.
And one thing that maybe I'll say is like a sneaky little comment every week is, as we say, KOC and Darnold are going to go through the season and have their coach-quarterback relationship mature and go through together. Right in that room should be J.J. McCarthy for every conversation. It should be a family of quarterbacks and coach, and that's only going to help J.J.'s forced redshirt year, injury year, and hopefully make his development all that much better. If you watched Michigan football this weekend, you can see, yes, Michigan, the University of Michigan, they lost pretty bad against Texas. Sorry, Forrest. I love you, Forrest. But, and Michigan lost more than just a quarterback. They lost their coach. They had 13 drafted players. They lost a lot of people, maybe even 14. But J.J. McCarthy was a big reason for Michigan to be successful. Obviously, he was the 10th overall pick. So in these conversations throughout this forced redshirt year, as Darnold and KOC meld into one mind, just throw J.J. McCarthy into that too, because it sounds like J.J.'s already in the meeting rooms and kind of back to being around the team a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely what it sounds like. Really quick, because I feel like we've bounced back and forth between the Giants game and the Niners game. Yeah. Let's put a bow on this Giants win really quick, 28-6, Vikings winning at MetLife Stadium against the Giants in Week 1. I asked you this question yesterday. Now that we've had kind of a day to marinate on it, your answer can stay the same. It could change. It's totally up to you. Who are you giving a game ball to after yesterday's win?
Well, I thought it was funny because the Vikings did what they always do after a win. They do the the video of KOC kind of rah-rah giving the game balls to the players in the locker room. I think the first game ball he gave was to Sam Darnold. And he said a fun stat, which kind of blew over my head during the game. Darnold started 12 for 12.
Yeah.
And like looked really good. And it wasn't just checkdowns every play. So Darnold was the first game ball I gave, when you asked that question after the game. And he was the first game ball KOC gave of the 2024 season was to Sam Darnold. And the other ones he gave to, I'm pretty sure Harrison Smith got a game ball from KOC. Andrew Van Ginkel got a game ball for his pick 6 and just being everywhere, like you said, throughout the game. I think Aaron Jones got a game ball. So I'm totally skirting by this question, but I think KOC made the perfect choices, and I may even be forgetting one or two. Do you have any other guys that you would give, or?
Well, I mentioned when we did our little recap video yesterday that Pat Jones might be a sneaky pick for a game ball, and I don't think he was awarded one, which is fine. Mm-hmm. And I know after looking at like the Vikes Insider post that he actually ranked pretty low. He was like 4th from the bottom in PFF on the team.
Oh, wow.
PFF is one stat. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I read into that. Like, that's not like certified gospel to me.
I agree with you, but we're doing the classic fan thing where it's like, oh, PFF is awesome. Look, Blake Brandel got this awesome grade. Then it's one guy doesn't get a good grade. Like, oh, it's just they don't know what they're looking at. In one breath, we're saying yes and no. But I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right.
It's one stat. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, and I'm going to piggyback on someone else. I watched Ben Lieber's post-game thoughts, and he mentioned Pat Jones. And he mentioned, I didn't watch that before we did our post-game reaction. The post-game reaction was literally like minutes after the clock expired. We hopped on and recorded our stuff, and I said that, and then I heard Ben Lieber say that too, like, hey, watch out for Pat Jones. He's had a great summer. He had a good camp. He's a good player, and he could be disruptive on defense for the Vikings, and he was. He had 2 sacks yesterday.
Yeah.
So PFF grade, be what it is. Pat Jones, man, got after the quarterback and recorded a couple of sacks. Heck of a first game for that guy.
Yeah. So. Hey, I agree with you, and I was just trying to be funny. I would trust Ben Lieber before I would really trust PFF. 2 sacks is no small feat. I do want to point something out a little bit. Oh, never mind. I thought I saw something that wasn't true. Anyways, I think those are appropriate game balls to give out. You actually gave a good answer. I just kind of copped out and did what KOC did. So you said what KOC said.
You do that a lot, but it's okay.
It makes me sound smart.
And I sound dumb because I'm I'm the homer. It's like, oh, PFF is great, and then but then there's this one guy.
I wasn't trying to make you sound dumb. I just thought it was funny that we were living that sentence in real life, because I truthfully agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
We can give each other a hard time every once in a while.
All right.